feeling? You feel all right?
So it's great to see everyone tonight. We've been working on guard sweeps. Let's first kind of remind ourselves what our primary sweeping concept is in jiu-jitsu. So our primary sweeping concept is that we're going to look to control a lever on our opponent's body, and then with that lever, we're going to look to shift their center of gravity. So there's a lot of different sweeps in jiu-jitsu, and it can often be overwhelming, especially as beginners, to try to figure out what sweep to do when. So I want us to really, again, understand the concept behind why these techniques work. So again, that sweeping concept was control a lever, shift the center of gravity. Every single sweep in jiu-jitsu will follow that. There's not a sweep that exists that does not follow that concept. We looked at 2 sweeps from the seated guard last class. And as a quick tangent, the seated guard is a really great position to help us with guard retention. Our opponent needs to put us on our back in order to pass, so we're denying that by sitting up and making sure that we're using frames to manage distance and engaging on our terms. That's going to be a very important detail for tonight, engaging on our terms, because we're going to be looking at our shin-to-shin sweep tonight. Now, the shin-to-shin sweep is technically a guard within the seated guard, so it's called the shin-to-shin guard, or sometimes just called the shin guard. But I'd like to demonstrate the actual sweep, but then I want to focus first on entering to the shin-to-shin guard, and then we'll move from there, okay, guys? So let's assume that I'm in my seated guard right like this. Now, I'm going to demonstrate it, and then we're going to talk about some of the triggers or some of the things that we're going to look for that's going to tell us when to go for this sweep. All right, guys, let's check it out. So our shin-to-shin guard is the position we're going to be going to first. So put simply, it's shin touching shin. Now, we want to understand first that we need to start with an inside position. And I was talking to a group during that warm-up drill, and I was mentioning how in most combat sports, we try to create or we try to get to an inside position because it just provides us with more lever control on our opponent. And it also makes it harder for our opponent to start to close the space and set up their attacks. And that's true in jiu-jitsu. I need to keep my limbs in between their limbs if possible. And we're going to start with this position, the inside position. My opponent's legs are staggered. Now, maybe we end up here where we're a little bit too close to do that ankle pick. And maybe I can't do the dummy sweep because he's not presenting double levers here. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our shin-to-shin guard. And I want to preface one thing. If you have like grappling experience, especially if you're a wrestler, you're going to love this sweep, okay? This is probably going to be one of your favorites. So let's look at the shin-to-shin guard. I'm going to be reaching my outside hand, my left hand here, and I'm going to be hooking the back of his knee. My left shin is going to be hooking against his right shin. Once I grab the back of his leg here, I'm going to hip escape forward, getting my ear as close to his thigh as possible, and locking my chest against his knee. My shin is nice and tight. I don't want this foot to be loose because it's going to be very easy for him to start to knee cut. Additionally, I don't want to be too far apart with my arm and my chest because then he can start to dig for underhooks or push me down, in which case his knee cut is going to be way, way too easy. So I'm going to be nice and tight. Look how my ear is basically listening to his thigh. My left hand can be doing one of two things. In the gi, I can be grabbing my own collar. This creates a closed loop, and it makes it so that I don't necessarily have to rely on as much muscular strength to maintain this closed loop. In no-gi, of course, that's not an option. In no-gi, we would simply hook and make sure that we're creating a little bit of regulated tension to keep that knee tight. Our right hand is going to be posting behind us to match the force vector that his knee would have if it drives into us. So theoretically, if he were to knee cut right now, his direction would be this way. My hand should be matching that direction. So I'm posting this hand right behind me like this, making it less likely for me to fall back and then get sort of grounded and he can start to knee cut. And you maybe noticed that I've mentioned that knee cut several times because the knee cut is the big threat from this position. If I give up underhooks and he's able to get into the inside position here, it's going to be way too easy for him to start to knee cut through and obviously put me in a bad position. So we need to be mindful of that. Again, as I enter, I'm going shin to shin. My elbows are closed. My head is nice and tight against his thigh. Once I'm here, my partner should be able to tell me whether or not I'm keeping really strong tension on his leg. I'm constantly pushing my shin into his. It should be pretty uncomfortable. right? Now, I'm not kicking him. Hopefully it won't leave a bruise, right? But I am actively driving my shin into him while pulling on his knee. So I'm trying to buckle his knee forward. This is, again, a regulated tension concept. I'm not just cosmetically holding this position, but I'm also not just spamming this as hard as I can. Because if we do that, that often creates openings that we don't intend to make. So what we're going to do is we're just going to enter to the shin guard first, and then we're going to talk about ways that we can sweep from here. I'll demonstrate once more from this perspective. So again, I'm going to start in my seated guard. Obviously, the hands are always going to be an issue, which is why we talk about hand fighting so much. So we may need to just engage with a hand fight first to clear some space. Again, I have my feet on the inside position. I hook my foot on his back of his heel, and now I'm going to reach and grab the back of his knee. Like a grappling hook, I pull myself towards him as I reach back to post and close that distance. Nice and tight. Your partner can check and make sure that you're rigid. If your head is looking down, you can access this as a spine to break your posture. So I'm upright, making sure that I'm close, 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 and he should have a little bit of difficulty trying to remove the leg at this point. All right, I'll demonstrate this again from another perspective. So again, we're in our seated guard here. I'm engaging with a hand fight, making sure I'm not opening up any underhook possibilities. I'm ready to go to the shin. So I hook, I reach and grab the back of his knee. I pull myself towards him, and as I do, my hand is behind me to act as a kickstand. Notice how I still have this inside position with my feet, guys. This right foot is vital for the sweep. We're going to talk about this foot next. So let's make sure this foot stays in between his legs as our head comes in and we grab. I'll demonstrate once more from the rear. Okay, guys, does anybody have any questions on entering to the shin guard? Yes.
Are you using the exact amount of pull and push pressure at the same time, or you rely more on pull, more on push, or it's exactly the same amount of pressure?
It really depends on the opponent, and it really depends on how they're reacting, right? If they're just very conservative and standing there and not moving, I'm going to need to do most of the work. But again, oftentimes my opponent's goal is to pass, so they'll be coming towards me already. So it'll be kind of like a two-way street at that point. Alrighty, guys. So for the entry, let's do this 2 for 2, and then we'll switch it up top and bottom. Ready, 1, 2. All right, so just entering into the shin. Obviously, it takes a little bit of confidence. It takes a little bit of commitment to move into that type of position, because you are essentially putting yourself right up against somebody's knee, which feels intimidating. It feels scary. It feels like something that maybe can obviously lead to bad things. But we need to understand this. My face is not going straight at their knee, okay? My head is turned. I mentioned this to one group. It's like I'm trying to listen to their leg, right? So my ear is touching the side of their leg here. It's going to make it much more difficult for them to start to accidentally maybe use that knee to bump me in the face. But of course, in jiu-jitsu, we're not throwing knee strikes, right? So it's not something that I should be freaking out about, right? Accidents happen. If he's throwing a knee and kneeing me in the face, well, clearly this is not an accident, and that needs to be addressed. Now, when I'm moving into this position, I'm trying to sit my butt right on top of his toes. And again, I'm trying to create that push-pull effect. So I'm pushing with my shin as I'm pulling with my arm. This is really going to lock that knee in place, right? And I'm going to say this a lot, guys. We have to be wary of the knee cut. If we're loose and lackadaisical here, he's going to cut the knee through, especially if our limbs are separated and he can dig for underhooks. So everything needs to be tight. Now, what we're going to look for is a double ankle sweep. So if anyone's familiar, a double ankle sweep is just where I grab both of his ankles and make someone fall over. We're going to do a double ankle sweep from the shin guard. Now, from this position, we're going to try to drop to our shoulder to elongate our right arm, allowing us to grab the opposite foot. Because if you notice right now, even at just this mild grappling stance, I can't really grab his other ankle. Potentially, I could grab the pants, but let's assume that we're also thinking no-gi. I can't grab his far ankle. If he was in a further, more exaggerated grappling stance, there's no way I'm grabbing the ankle. So in order to elongate this arm, I'm going to drop to my shoulder, and I'm going to create a pyramid effect with 3 points, right, or a triangle. His foot, my shoulder, his foot. So I'm not dropping on my back. Again, they're going to knee cut you, okay? And I'll keep saying this. If my back goes on the ground, now I'm carrying all of his weight on top of me, And it's going to be way too easy for him to start to just clear out of my grip, this closed loop, and just finish the knee cut. So again, my shoulder drops down in between his feet. This is going to allow my right arm to be able to reach and grab that far ankle. So notice how I'm on my side. This is critical to allow me to reach and grab. And just in case you were wondering, you can also grab the pants for this. That's fine. Or you can grab the ankle for direct control. Now, your right foot, this foot is actually important because this is the engine that's going to drive you off the floor to allow you to really kick out and get that ankle over there. My right foot is on the side, the blade of the foot here, and I'm going to be pushing and driving this foot into the mat to allow me to rotate and cut that angle really, really hard. I don't just want to basically fall like a tree. If I just start to fall like a tree, it's going to be too easy for him to overpower that knee cut. So I'm pushing off with my right heel, my right side of my foot, and really corkscrewing and reaching for that far ankle. Now here comes the most critical part of this sweep, and that's our shin to shin elevation. We're going to rotate so that we can see this from another angle. As I drop to my shoulder, I'm using that corkscrew motion, driving with this right heel. When I reach for that ankle, I need to extend and elevate his foot up into the sky by using my shin to shin hook. If this foot is loose and relaxed, his heel comes out, and guess what he's doing? You got it, he's knee cutting. Okay? So we have to keep an engaged hook. Again, that regulated tension. This is a great example for why regulated tension is so important. If it's just cosmetic, if I'm just sitting here, it slips out. However, if I kick too hard, I force it out. So I need to cradle his foot with my foot, right? It's like I'm lifting it up like a platform and offering it up to the heavens. So I'm lifting my hook up into the sky as I'm holding his knee tight against my chest. Here. Notice what that does. That shifted his center of gravity. So now I have double lever control. His gravity has now been shifted overhead of me. So to finish this, all I'm going to do is just turn towards him as I continue elevating this hook. I come up and finish on my knees. We can talk about ways to finish and start passing after this, but we're just going to stop here. We're just going to come up on our knees. So let's think about how this relates to our sweeping concept. We're controlling levers, in this case, double ankles. We're shifting their center of gravity by forcing their heel up and over top of their hips. Once we have that shift, we simply get up on our knees and we've swept our opponent. Let's look again. So I'm starting here, right? I'm managing my distance. I enter in nice and tight. I'm going to start to corkscrew and drop to my shoulder as I reach for the far ankle, and I elevate that hook. Notice how my active toes are ready to assist me in getting up on my knees. Once I have double lever control, I'm going to start to kick this heel up and over like a rainbow, and all I need to do is just get on my knees. At the end, I'm still holding my collar here, and my foot is still hooked on his shin. All right, guys, again, we'll talk about some things you can do once you're here next, but for right now, we'll just work this sweep. I'll show it one more time without talking. You may have noticed there I pulled the heel a little bit. That's entirely up to you and obviously the resistance that your partner is providing you with. All right, does anybody need to see it again? Yep, no problem. I'll show it again here. So I'm in my seated guard. I'm going to enter into shin to shin. Create the closed loop. I corkscrew down to my shoulder. And look how this leg is still bent, guys. This is providing me with potential energy I can use to push off. So I rotate to the shoulder, elevate the hook. I now start to continue that elevation as I turn towards him. My back never touches the ground. I just rotate and get up on my knees at the end. Very simple. Look, I'm holding both of his legs with my body. Let's try this slowly. Top person safety. Make sure that as you start to get your gravity shifted forward, we're simply going to extend our hands. Make sure you're bending your knees to do that first. We don't want to fall from the apex of our height. We want to slowly crumple. Stick your hands out. Your partner's going to start lifting your foot up in the air. And when they start to shift your hips, you're just going to drop onto your hip. Make sure that we're falling on soft, fleshy parts of our body and not bone. We never fall on bone. We always try to fall on softest parts, okay? Let's try this, guys, on 2. 1, 2. All right, guys, so last little piece, and then we'll just finish up by drilling this and then getting to rolling. So one thing that I mentioned to a group that I want to express to everyone is when I'm doing most sweeps in jiu-jitsu, we talk about that concept of control a lever, control the center of gravity. When I say control, what I want you to think about, especially with a sweep like this, is I want you to be parasitic with your partner. I want your body to replace their leg. So in order for them to stand, they are reliant on you. And that's something that's a little bit difficult to understand in the beginning. And that form of control makes our sweeps far more inevitable. So how does that look in the context of this sweep? When I'm here in the shin-to-shin position, wherever I move, his leg should follow me. His leg shouldn't feel like a limb anymore. His leg should now feel like an extension of my body. So wherever I move, that forces him to move. This is the expression of lever control. I am controlling his ability to move via accessing this lever here, this leg, right? And again, a lever is just a force multiplier. So I could push him to make a move, but by using a lever to make him move, it makes all movement easier, makes life so much easier to happen. So again, once I'm in this spot, everything stays super tight. All right, if I start to fall back here and I'm creating a space, I'm giving him plenty of access for the knee cut. So again, I want to be parasitic with how I'm approaching this. Everything's super, super tight, right? I am replacing his leg. That's why we do a lot of these sort of like body control leg positions, like single leg X, like shin to shin. That's why we teach these in the 101 class, because it's the best expression of lever control. No other guards really control a lever this extensively. That's why we like to show these, because they're very easy and very high reward to learn as beginners, because you can use this against many people regardless of size. So again, let's talk now about some various finishes. So we're here, we finish the sweep, and we come up. Once I come up, I want to try to maintain a nice shin staple, we call it. So if you rotate here, so my shin is over top of his shin, right? My arm is still controlling here. Now, we have a lot of things that we can do, guys, and I would like you to just kind of experiment and practice and try something at the end. I have a great position with his legs folded. Last week was passing. So last week we worked on the leg weave, almost a similar position, right? I can start to use my hand to leg weave. I can windshield wiper my shins over. Now I can start to pass and get behind my opponent. We always encourage sweeping and then immediately attacking a guard pass, because that's going to enable you to continue offensive pressure on your opponent. So don't overthink the ending too much, right? As soon as you come up, try to get behind them. Always looking to get behind them. So let's try one more round of drilling this, and then we'll start applying this to some rolling drills. Any questions? Yes, sir. All right, guys, let's go. 1, 2. Now let's finish it up.